Hey everybody, Mike Bloom here, getting you ready for our week 3 exit interviews here on our Australian Survivor Redemption coverage. It was a big week. We swapped tribes officially. We saw a lot of the new Bounty tribe. In fact, I'll be talking with 3 members of the new Bounty tribe. So, yet again, this is your warning to Vamoose if you have not already watched episodes 7, 8, and 9, because we are talking about 3 very intriguing characters on this season. You'll be hearing my conversation with Don Rogers / Roberts, Lindle, and Tez. These were a lot of fascinating, fantastic chats where we heard a lot about the methodology behind what we saw, but perhaps more pertinently for these 3, what we didn't see. In particular, I can excitedly confirm to you that after basically a week of speculation, I was finally able to get an answer once and for all as to what the heck was going on with Lindle and Brooke's idols after the swap. Were they still active? Why did Brooke use it? Why was the idol in Lindle's lower third? We get a clarification from her straight from Lindle's mouth, and that should hopefully bring a lot more into focus. Of course, I hope you were focusing on the great recaps we had this week, covering all the shenanigans that ensued in this post-swap phase. Of course, the episode 7 recap with Chappelle, the episode 8 recap with Puya, and the episode 9 recap, Laura Darris from Blood versus Water, from Brains versus Brawn 2, which was a really fantastic conversation as we tried to parse through a lot of, I would say, interesting decisions being made by both players and production. Of course, if you want to check out more discussion about said interesting decisions, you know what to do. We know globalsurvivor.com to make sure you don't miss out on a second of all the coverage we have going on. We'll have a few days rest, but then the Australian Survivor Week begins anew. And frankly, after this week, I have no idea what is about to happen next. But what is going to happen next for you is you're about to listen to my conversations with Don, Lindle, and Tez.
Lovely to meet you, Mike.
Well, lovely to meet you as well, Don. I feel a little underdressed, though, so let me also try to match here.
Hey, welcome to the party.
No beavers here, but try just pale in comparison. How are you doing right now? It's been a whirlwind for you, I imagine, to say the least.
Oh, it has been, but yeah, I'm doing great. It was what an experience, what a ride that the Survivor Redemption's been. It's definitely been a journey. It's been a journey.
Well, let's talk about what got you on that ride in the first place, because obviously your brother's reputation precedes him. So, like, was Survivor courting you for a while? How did you get onto this particular season?
Well, I'd applied a couple of times. Obviously seeing my brother play Survivor, I applied a couple of times over the last 5 years, and one of those times I got through to the interview, and one of the production or casting staff said, it's not a no, it's just not yet, So I'm a country music is part of my redemption story, if you like, and as my music sort of developed, that profile started to grow, and I was fortunate enough that I just had some of the casting people reach out, and I still had to go through the casting process, but it was amazing. It just sort of all fell into place for me. So it's something I'm very grateful for. That's for sure, Mike.
Absolutely. Well, let's fast forward from the beginning to the end here, because from what we see, you come into tribal council, you think it's a Sally vote, and all of a sudden, Keely just causes chaos to happen on the other side of tribal. I'm so curious, did you notice anything that was happening, and did that give you any sort of pause as to whether you would be safe?
No, I didn't, and it was great gameplay from Keely. I mean, I had no idea, and I thought the vote was, it took me a long time to sort of, I guess, start playing to focus on my social game. I left my run pretty late in that regard, and I knew I'd brush people up the wrong way, and my game was just starting to shift. My alliance was intact. I just thought, everything was on the up and up, and I thought we had a plan to vote Sally, and then which started out as Tez, and then. But my hat's off to Keely. Great gameplay, because it was, I watched that episode last night with probably 2/3 of the cast members. We had a charity event in Sydney,
Oh,
and
wow.
everyone was just like, "What?" Yeah, and there was over 100 Survivor fans there, um, and they were just as you know amazed. They were like, "Wow!" Like it's completely left field.
Well, I'm curious going back to the beginning, how this all got set up is, as you mentioned, perhaps the social game was not as much of a priority to you as the shelter, at least definitely initially. Was that your game plan going in? What made you so
Yeah,
fixated on the survival part of things?
I don't know. I don't know. It was like um, just a default position. I just fell into. I got too hung up too early on the survival element. And there's you need shelter, water, food. And I thought, if we can get a good shelter and we can rest properly, then we're going to have more energy for so my motivations were good, but my methodology just needed a little bit of work. I knew early I was being abrasive and almost confrontational, and it wasn't intentional. It was just, you're that stretched in so many different ways on Survivor, not only physically, emotionally, mentally. Wow, what they don't call it the greatest game in the world for nothing, and I really think that it is. It's wow, what an experience.
Yeah, well then I'm curious, when were sort of the first signs that you discovered the way you were sort of being perceived? Did you like change anything based on that?
Yeah, I did. There was a discussion I had with Ben, Big Benny Davis, an amazing guy and an absolute weapon to have on your team. Like his prowess in the challenges, what a beast, And but I was trying to hide my identity early. I was saying I was Don Roberts, and I just didn't want that target of being the Godfather's brother on my back. And I thought it would have put one there, and I sort of realised that I'd done a good enough job putting a target on myself for my own reasons, and I knew I was in trouble. And Ben pulled me aside the night before. It didn't make the edit, but the night before, where I got everyone together in the morning and told them the secret I was hiding. Um, Ben said to me two words on the beach that just rang in my head all night. I couldn't shake him. He said, "Authentic self." He said, "Donnie, you're a good guy. Just be your authentic self, mate." And I was like, wow. So I went to bed that night and just did not sleep a single wink. I just wrestled with it all night. And I thought, you know what? I've got a target on my back anyway. I'm just going in a game like Survivor, when you are stripped back to all you've got's your identity. That's all you have. There is nothing else. So, and that was a real weight off my shoulders, if you like, once I could just be my authentic self. And then my social game slowly started to come around, and it just took way longer than it should have. But uh,
Did
but I felt like I was finally starting to hit my straps.
Were there any moments besides the one we saw where you slipped up with Don Roberts and Don Rogers? Because that is alarmingly close between a fake name and a real name.
Yeah, well, that's why I chose that name. I was like, I've got to come up with something, because if I accidentally say Rogers, I can go, no, I said Roberts. That was part of the strategy. um, that was funny. And then Sally picked up on it straight away, and then she just, yeah, yeah, yeah. She just, and thankfully she didn't pursue it. She was like, I thought you just said Rogers. I said, no, no. I said, but but no, it was a fun little part of the gameplay early, but it wasn't sustainable. It was just too hard.
Well, probably one of the reasons why you didn't want to open up about your family is because of the association with Matt. Do you feel like people were looking at you differently after you revealed you were a Rogers?
Yeah, but in a good way. Yeah,
Yeah.
in a good way. I guess they sort of maybe, um, and it's a double edged sword when you can get that competitive streak in you, and you're just always trying to push for the win, and it can rub people up the wrong way. But I think it let the fellow tribesmates understand where that part of my DNA comes from and why I get laser focused on different components of challenges and whatnot, especially when you can be of service to your tribe if it's something you do well. Um, Early on the first days, I think it might have been day one or two, we all got together and I sort of said to everyone, let's go around the circle and identify each other, like just say one or two things that you're good at. Are you a good balance? Can you balance? Can you throw? Can you swim? Can you? Let's just go around and say one thing. You know, are you good at puzzles? Do you have a an analytical sort of mind? I'm a creative, so puzzles and me don't go together. But I knew I could throw, so we went around and that was handy to know, to at least have a rough idea of different players' skill sets when you go into those challenges. When they say, we'll give you a minute to strategize, mate, it literally is a minute. It's not like
Yeah.
10 minutes. It's maybe not even. It might even be 45 seconds. It's not long. So you've got to like formulate a strategy with 12 people, especially in the early days where you don't know who's bringing what to the table. So you watch each other in these challenges and you work out pretty quickly where people's strengths and weaknesses are, and then you've got to try and formulate a plan on no sleep and no food, and yeah, it's a challenge. It's a challenge for sure.
Well, I mean, speaking of that, there were a number of times where we heard you either say it, quietly or not so quietly about like, switch me out, Mark. I should have been on this part. Was that just like pure frustration coming about? Was there sort of like any confrontation happening when people were sort of clapping back at you about that?
No, not really. I think you're just in that moment. You're not, when you're in the heat of battle, in the trenches, if you like, in a challenge, you're not even thinking about cameras or microphones, or you're just in that moment trying to get the W for your team, and it was frustrating at times, when when I thought I could be doing a better job, and I think the two times where I got to play the end game demonstrated that that I could have backed it up if I had been given the opportunity, but not everything works out the way you want it in Survivor, which is why I'm here on your awesome podcast.
Well, listen, you had a guy in your corner the entire time, a man named Mark, who you do open up to about your background before you do the rest of the tribe. So talk to me about that
Mm.
relationship. How did that develop?
Oh, I just loved watching Mark play previously. I knew he was a great player, very strategic mind, and great with people. I mean, he's not a diplomat for no reason. He's very good at reading a room and connecting people, and I just had respect for him from former games. So I knew he'd be a good player. I connected with him on day one. How the corn chip cartel name came about, you saw Mark on the show with a poncho. He was wearing a poncho,
Yeah.
and I had a poncho as well that didn't make any of the edits, but we were both wearing our ponchos, and I said we've got to come up with an alliance, and then we just started throwing out Mexican names, sombreros, corn chips, tortillas, and then the corn chip cartel just sort of stuck.
Well, how did Caleb get roped in here as the third member of the cartel? Because this is a guy who's presented as a bit of a wild card. Did you have a connection with him as well?
Absolutely, and that was the wild card in him that attracted me to him. He reminded me a lot of my sort of self in my early 20s or whatever. I love that little mischievous streak he's got. He's like a little Tasmanian devil. He's a little ball of energy, and he's just such a beautiful guy too. Um, and we've got a friendship that will stand the test of time. And I think anyone that's walk through that survivor furnace together, you're always going to have that connection, but there's some connections that are closer than others, and Caleb's going to be a good friend for a long while.
I'm curious because there was at one point you outright said that you haven't really gotten to know anybody at a certain point in the
Mm,
game.
mm,
So was it
yeah.
as simple as like you woke up the next day and you're like, hey, what's your kid's name? Like, what were the ways that you were trying to get to know these tribe mates to improve your game?
Yeah, pretty much. It was a conscious thing. I had to, I guess, firstly identify the errors in my gameplay that I wasn't doing right, like the building those social connections, and then once I identified that, I sort of, yeah, just like you said, I just started asking people about them instead of speaking about me. Because that was probably to my detriment early. I didn't show enough. I was trying to be interesting, not interested. And I think in the game
Yeah.
of Survivor, you need to be interested in other people. And given if I had the chance to do it again, I'd definitely apply that lesson a lot earlier in the game. I wouldn't even worry about the shelter, to be honest. I'd be like, well, If one's getting wet, we're all getting wet. We're going to get wet together, you know?
Yeah, what was your reaction when Johnson said it was like you were narrating your own autobiography? Did you understand that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, yeah. And he was right. He was, and I've got nothing but love and respect for Johnson as well, connected with him last night. And yeah, he's a tremendous guy. But he was spot on. Yeah, his comment was justified. Yeah.
Well, let's go from Baron to Bounty here,
Mm,
albeit
mm.
briefly. So Sally approaches
Beautiful
you.
bouncy beat. Yeah.
Beautiful Bounty Beach, your dream come
Yeah.
true. Sally
Oh,
approaches
maybe.
you with this idea of, all right, we gotta not don't get rid of Mark tonight. It's still Tez, but down the line, we've got to do it. Did you
Yeah.
immediately go to Mark with this information? What made you decide to tell him about this?
I went to Mark like straight away, like within seconds, 10 seconds. I was like, hey, Sally's gunning for you, bro. And he was like, what, me? I'm like, yeah. And yeah, I'm big on loyalty like that, like, and I'd like to think that he would have done the same for me. And he did do the same for me when I was catching heat. He said, mate, you're going to probably cop a few votes tonight, but I don't think you need to worry. And that's why I also put my hand up to be the decoy vote a couple of times. So just put votes on me because one, it's believable. I put myself in that position, um, but yeah, I couldn't withhold that information from Mark. And eventually, I would have liked to have claimed, some scalps like Mark and Brooke, and those returning players because that's going to build your resume, right? So I did have, you know, an ulterior motive to work with Mark as well, and given the chance, I wanted to just work together to get through to merge. Then once I got to merge, then my gameplay was, hopefully going to get a bit more strategic and start targeting a few of those more experienced players that are big threats out there.
Yeah, so you get approached again by Sally. We see you have conversations with Faith and with Keely. So I'm curious, did you have a relationship with them prior to the swap, or was this like one of the first major strat chats you had with them?
No, no, we had a relationship. wasn't as tight as the one with Mark and Caleb, but yeah, I mean, you get to know each other pretty quickly in that environment, like um, and I don't know if I should have worked with them or not. Maybe I should have. Maybe maybe that's why I'm sitting here is because I didn't work with them strategically,
Did
but
you, yeah, did you get a sense that Mark was working as closely with them as he was realistically? Did you have like a,
yeah,
did that make you feel a
yeah,
certain way?
yeah. I could. You could tell Mark and Faith in particular had a tight bond. Um, um, Not so much Sally. I think Sally sort of floated around the camp, and she's a great player too. Like which is smart in the game of Survivor, is not to put all your eggs in one basket. And I sort of did put, I guess, all my eggs in the corn chip cartel basket. But yeah, yeah, you could tell that Mark was working with multiple alliances, but he does it
So,
so well. Yeah.
so had you survived here, if it was that Sally vote, what would the next move have been? Had you gone back to tribal, would you have gone for one of the former bounty members in Lindle or Richard? Would you have gone for
I don't think
Tez?
I,
Would you have gone for Faith or Keeley?
yeah, I don't think I would have gone for Richard or Lindell because going into tribe swap with a 7-2 balance, we were so, which I think was detrimental to my game. You'd rather go in 5-4 or something where your numbers actually mean something. But when it's outweighed so heavily, being 7-2, like the original Baron can vote three of their own out and still have double they still have 4-2. You know what I mean? So it's,
Mm.
and I didn't see that until I got back, and then I was talking to Matt, and Matt pointed out, he goes, "Mate, 7-2, that's no good. You would have been better to go in, with a tighter split than that." But I was actually really looking forward to working with Richard. I said that on my first day on Bounty. I said, "Mate, for some reason, I don't know, we're similar, in age and whatnot. I just had tremendous respect for him. For some reason, I don't know why. I'm actually at Richard's place now. He's been kind enough to look where we are. I'll give you a
Oh
quick.
my
Oh,
God, you're in the
can I do?
Casa de Cash Flow itself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is
Oh
beautiful.
my God.
Beautiful. So
Wow. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
it's a lovely, lovely little spot. So thank you, Richard. And yeah, so um, I forget the original question, but I
No,
just
no,
wanted
no.
to
no,
show you. I
I
wanted to
want
show
to
you what I'm
go
sitting.
back to something you were mentioning before. I want to talk about Matt here because now
Yeah,
your brother has gotten the chance to see you on
yeah,
Survivor to play the game he's
yeah,
played twice before. What's his
yeah.
reaction been? What has he given you his thoughts throughout the entire season?
Oh, mate, he was proud of me to get there. I mean, it's even just to play Survivor. I mean, it's I think someone told me a stat the other day. I think there's been 260 popes or something, 265 popes, and there's been 262 people that have played Australian Survivor or something like that. It's part of a very a very special club, and to be a part of it's huge. Um, yeah, but I think my brother knows me well, and he saw, some of the first episodes. He was like, "Oh, mate," I was like, "Yeah, yeah." I just, what do you do? What do you do? You just, yeah. I knew I sort of rubbed some of the tribes mates up the wrong way early with a couple of. I just wear my heart on my sleeve, and like, when I'm trying to build a shelter and there's no one helping, I'm looking around going, "There's a whole lot of people doing a whole lot of nothing." Like, I don't know if anyone heard that. I mean, I know the viewers at home definitely heard it, but it wasn't something I was just thinking out loud,
Right.
basically. And probably in a game like Survivor, it's not the wisest thing to do.
Well, the last thing I want to ask
you know,
Don is you did say at one point, I think it was actually when the Don Roberts faux pas happened. You said you were going to write a country song about this
yeah,
experience. Have you done it
yeah.
yet?
It's in the works at the moment. It's going to be called, is it? Oh no, I don't know. PTSD in Paradise or something. But I got some ideas. We've got some new music. We're actually launching our debut single. So a shout out to all our friends across there, that across in America and wherever they're watching. We're going to be on Spotify from tomorrow with our debut single called "Light It Up." So hopefully you all can give that a little play and yeah, have a listen if you like it, share it, and we're very grateful for your support.
Well, listen, you lit it up not only on screen but in this conversation today. I had such a great time chatting with you. I mean, it comes back to those two Ben words, right? Authentic
Mm,
self. And I do think we
yeah.
saw that whether you were Don Roberts or Don Rogers the entire time. And obviously, I wish we were speaking much further down the line, but regardless, it was such a fun time getting to watch you, especially given your obvious connection with the show and figure things out on the fly. And go out in such a surprising blaze of glory. So thank you
Oh,
so much, Don, for taking the time to chat with me today.
yeah. Thanks so much, Mike. And I love the hat. And yeah, thanks for having me on the program. And yeah, and for the support that you guys give to Australian Survivor and Survivor around the world. It really is the greatest game in the world. So to be a part of it's pretty special.
Of course. Well, thank you for being a part of it. Thank you so much
Mm.
for everything you brought to this chat. All the best to you and Matt and the family. And thanks so much again, Don. You have a good one.
Thank you. All the best.
All right, Lindle. There's a lot of questions I want to ask, but I have to start with the thing that has had the Australian Survivor fandom in a tizzy for the past few days. Was your idol real or not after the swap?
My idol expired at Tribe Swap and was taken off me. That was the worst thing handing that over. I was like, no, I worked so hard for this thing. It was taken off me. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Did that guide the way that you sort of approached the rest of your game? Because I imagine we'll get into obviously a lot of the ways that you thought things were going. You had that idol to fall back on. So did that change the way that you were reviewing things?
Absolutely. I felt invincible. I felt I was Delulu with that thing, wasn't I? I I felt amazing having that idol. And it was such an experience. It wasn't a straightforward idol. I was really lucky and I am absolutely heartbroken that I didn't get to play it. And yeah, I warn everyone before I say it, but the one time that I really wanted to play it and I regret not playing it was I wanted to save Harry.
You wanted to save Harry.
I did. I did. I was safe. I was safe anyways. I could have done a lot of things that night, and I did want Jackson to go. Love him now, but yeah, I couldn't see me working with Jackson at all. And from day one, Harry and I did want to work together. It kind of shifted away because I was much, much closer with Loz, and he kept going for Loz, and Loz didn't like him. So I was like, look, I'm sticking with my ride or die. But yeah, I wanted to work with Harry from day one. I've been a fan. Like I applied for the first time in 2018, and um, yeah, it kind of was a little bit heartbreaking the way him and I shifted. He didn't trust me anymore. I think Paula was a bit shady about me, and yeah, there was a few moments where I tried to get back in with Harry, and it was really frustrating for me. But I wanted to save him, and I think with Paula out of the picture, if I'd played it for him, he it could have gone two ways. Who knows? He could have thrown me under the bus quite quickly, but it would have been so fun working with him.
Well,
Um,
let's talk about how this fun all kicked off here. Lindle, I want to start with Laws because this was obviously a very key relationship for you. You two dig up this
huge,
idol on the beach at night. When and how did this come together?
huge, huge. I am a big fan of, strong, independent, powerful women, and for her to throw herself into a game like this, she really inspired me. She's like family to me now. To have a connection that strong, especially that early on, I knew 100% we were not going to write each other's names down. We were having giggle fits in the hammock together every day, just having the best time. And my tribe, I don't think they understood our relationship. I think it bothered them. They were like, who are these like losers just on the outs? And it was a really, really special friendship. Choosing her to dig up that idol was, look, if I'd chosen someone else to help me or told someone else about it, maybe I wouldn't have been on the bottom so much because Loz was an easy target, which really annoys me. Um, but yeah, her and I bonded really strong, really quick. And that wasn't shown that much, but she ended up being, the person who helped me do my idol swap. She was the one who encouraged everyone to go over because she knew that I hadn't done it. Um, and then when she was sent with Arsha's
Yes.
advantage, she was sent for a sleepover at Baron. She was there setting things up for merge for her and I. So she had told, Brooke and Mark knew about the idol, and she told Mark, that we're working together. So they were going to look after, at Tribe Swap, Mark was meant to look after me. And yeah, I had a lot of plans for post merge. And unfortunately, we just came up a little bit short.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Brooke because we need to go to this idol swap. Now, I'm curious because you find this idol first, right? You find that scroll in the opening challenge and you choose to share this information to Brooke. What was it about Brooke that made you want to decide that she would be the one to presumably dig up this idol?
I mean, who else would be able to do it? I knew Brooke being such a powerhouse and a returning player, she'd be able to pull it off. The idol's hidden right in front of your camp. That is terrifying. Like being seen digging up an idol, it would be horrible, one puts a target on your back, and two potentially means that the idol can't be used and they just want to flush it. So I chose the right person. It was always going to be her for me. And she was so quick to pick up the information as well. When I saw that opportunity at the end of the immunity challenge where I told her, we're all up the top there. Everyone's so close to each other. My tribe is sad. We've just lost. They're all celebrating that they won. I just made eye contact with her and shifted over to the fence. And I was like, and she goes, "Are you right?" And I'm like, blah, blah, blah. There's a clue. Do this. Get the idol and swap it with me. She's like, okay. And then we just part ways. And it felt really smooth. And I knew straight away I'd picked the right person. Um, and yeah, it was always going to be Brooke. So I'm really, really bummed that I didn't get to work with her in the end.
Well, you picked the right person. I don't know if you picked the right way to maybe swap them, because this was something that was a little out in the open from our perspective. I certainly talked with people. Johnson said that he had clocked it at a certain point. Talk to me about how this all went down.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny everyone's reaction to it because I was chuffed. Honestly, look, a successful swap, I didn't think anyone saw. No one in my tribe saw. It was completely secret. Only Loz and I knew about it in my tribe. I did find out later that Johnson had seen. So, and then at some challenges afterwards, he would be going past me and he'd be like, "Oh, how's the idol?" And I thought he was just trying to spin me out. I'm like, does he know? No, he doesn't know. So the swap, I was willing to not do it if it came to it and wait for the next challenge. Okay. Um, Everyone knows that there's been times where people have had that opportunity and not done it, and people get busted all the time. So I'd gone into that challenge with my idol prepped. It was wrapped in a sock, in a black sock, and I shoved it down the back of my shorts, and I had my loose shirt over the top. I had the best outfit for that. And it was so hard because there's this huge platform in between the two tribes at that wrecking ball challenge. And I kept like that whole challenge. I didn't care what was going on. I was hardly watching. I'm like, yeah, like, we got a point. Like, I was spinning out. I was pacing back and forth, like going, oh my gosh. Brooke was so smooth. Like, how does she do it? She's just too cool, I swear. I look over at her and she's put it in her hat and she had her hat behind her back and she's shaking it and she's like, I've got it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not that cool. How am I going to do this? So she then goes and puts it behind the platform that David's on. And I just was like, it didn't feel right. It did not feel right. If I was seen scurrying behind there by anyone, I was done for. And I didn't feel that safe with my tribe at that point, and that was too much of a risk for me. So, as devastating as it was, I was going to give up. But Loz, my ride or die bestie, she knew. And she comes out of nowhere and is like, why don't we all go give them a hug? And I'm like, oh gosh, are we really doing this? Are you sure? And she's like, yep. Like she gave me the courage and we all went over there. As soon as I think Brooke had given up at that point and she'd put it back in her bag. And we go over there and I say hi. She goes to her bag to get it out. And I just whip mine out and throw it straight into her bag. I'm like, that was so smooth. It was smooth for me, okay? But poor Brooke had to fumble around in her bag a bit, and then she wrapped it back up in her hat and then shoved it down the back of my shorts as well. And
Wow.
like I threw it so quick into her bag, but then I'm like, I am not moving my feet from this position until I get mine back. Because imagine if she just did me dirty and kept mine. Um,
I mean,
for
listen,
me,
it'd be a move respective of the host who is getting you through those challenges.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. So yeah, I know it looked hilarious and terrible and all those things, but for me, it was a big highlight for me actually.
I mean, it was incredible TV and it got you that idol. Now, what's interesting is that you mentioned that, you felt you were on the bottom of the tribe, and you are informed as much by
Yeah.
Eliza in the middle of the night. So I need to get your reaction to this. Was it truly because she woke you up in the middle of the night that you decided to go after Eliza so ferociously?
So there's a couple of things here, okay? I the first two nights I didn't sleep at all. Like at all. I started hallucinating by night three. I was
Oh my
seeing
God.
faces in the trees. Everything was spooking me. I was yeah, I was struggling. So I was I think I had like a little bit of a nap, I would say, and then I woke up. I woke up to go to the bush. And then she pulls me over to the fire just as I'm going back to bed. And she's quite intense sometimes. And I love her, but I hadn't really spoken strategy with her very much at all. And she said, Lindle, it's you and I are on the bottom. I can't remember if she says Loz or not, but Loz was always a target. And I didn't know if she was just trying to rattle me or if I did believe her. I think eventually I did believe her, but the only capabilities I had at that point was to get the target off me, get it off Loz. And so I just did what I could and I went round and I put the target on her. And I mean, it worked. If I was that far on the bottom, would that have worked? I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because this is not the last time, certainly, that we see, someone comes to you, says you're on the bottom, and from our perspective, you're saying, this is getting me too paranoid. I'm going to go after you, a bit of the shoot the messenger thing. Was that accurate? Was that a commonality you felt throughout your time there?
If anyone came to me with information, I would question it. I would always fire back with, trying to, I didn't trust anyone. I trusted Loz. I trusted Simon at that point. And yeah, I think people come to you with information. You can't just go, okay, straight away. Um, but yeah, what shoot the messenger? Who else did I shoot the messenger with? Oh, Harry.
There was Harry, and then there was the wasn't shooting the messenger, but when Paula talks about you being the decoy vote, that's something that you're pretty adverse to.
So Lottie came to me with that information and about being the decoy vote. I did believe her, but I still needed to ask questions back and push back to just see her reaction and gauge her face. But I did believe what she said, and that was such a crazy night because I liked Paula up until that time, and Paula and I had been doing check-ins with each other, being like, "We're good, yeah, we're still good." But Paula and Harry were really frustrated with me that I wouldn't gun for Lottie. Uh, Loz wanted Harry out, and Loz was trying to get me and her to work with Lottie rather than Harry and Paula. So it was really hard for me because I did want to work with Harry from the start, but we kind of drifted apart a little bit, and he was getting frustrated with me because of how close I was with Loz, and I wasn't going for Lottie. So after I was told that I'd be the decoy vote, and I knew that it was Paula and they were coming for me. I have this conversation with Paula, and she says, I want to be girl strong. Let's go for Jackson. And I said to her, have you heard my name come up? And she said no. And I knew she was lying. And I was like, at that point, it kind of broke my heart a little bit. I was like, okay, it's you. And I knew that the votes were going exactly how they went. And it sucked that Loz was always in the firing line as well. I felt like I spent a lot of time trying to tell people like stop going for her. Like, she shouldn't be the easy vote. It was really frustrating. But look, it's very hard to read people out there.
Hmm. And that's
I
coming from
loved
Swindle
everyone.
herself.
Yeah. People can't read me, okay? That's the whole poker face. It's hard to know who, because you've got two elements, right? You've got um, when you're spending time together and you're not talking strategy and you're not talking game, and you're just bonding, you're just having fun, you're playing games, um, I was really I was really loving like the camp life factor. I love making a fire. I've always been someone who would go camping and building things, collecting firewood, arranging, keeping the firewood dry and this and that, collecting coconuts, cutting them open. So I unfortunately would misread spending quality time like that to, people wanting to work with me. So it was a bit confusing out there for me.
Well, what's interesting is we move into the swap here, and you say at one point that you felt more at home with these people than you did on Old Bounty. Who were you connecting with the most during your limited time in this tribe?
I did feel like Tribe Swap it was terrifying, right? Just two people. And everyone in Barron were screaming for joy. They were so excited. Everyone's talking about how beautiful the sand is over on Barron. I'm like, I still don't know what it looks like. So it was a little bit heartbreaking and a bit of a punch to the gut that they were like, see ya. Um, I had started to make a good strategic connection with Lottie and Arsha pre-swap after the Harry vote. So I was like, okay, look, I've got that for moving forward. Rich and I forced into a bond, a trauma bond. And then Loz, because Loz had spent the night over at Barron when Arsha used her, uh, uh, what's it called?
Advantage.
Advantage. She had set up because Mark and Brooke obviously knew about the idol. We had like this connection. Loz knew about the idol. So they had that set up. Mark was going to look after me in Tribe Swap. So going in there, I connected really quickly with Mark, and I also bonded really well with Faith. We had a day off together before the immunity challenge, and I was sunbaking on the beach with Faith. I was like brushing her hair, getting all the knots out. Um, Sally and I clicked because she's from Wollongong, I'm from Wollongong. She knows my sisters. She knows like heaps of my friends. I know her partner. I'd actually made some really good connections there. Caleb is an absolute darling. We had some really good deep and meaningful chats down on the beach. So I I think at that stage of the game, in comparison to week one or the first few days where I was super paranoid, hardly had slept. I was paranoid because I had this clue. I was doing the idol thing. I was quite withdrawn from my tribe. And I think me being in my head so much, they just didn't trust me. They thought I was
Mm.
sketchy. To be fair, like that's fine. So after Tribe Swap, I was also thinking about my resume. I'm thinking, the clue, the idol, this, that, getting Eliza out, the Harry Paul. Like I was actually quite positive about it. Rich was freaking out. He was like pale as a ghost. He was like, Lindle, I think we're in trouble. I'm like, chill, it's okay, it's fine. Um, yeah, it's and I think that came across to our new tribe. So they turned on us quite quickly and I was collateral damage.
Well, let's talk about how that damage came about because you were caught up in this, last minute Keeley whisper session at Tribal. This time we have Mark, mouthing to Tez. Tez outright says, I don't know what's going on. So, what was sort of your sense as to what was happening in Tribal Council? Were you clocking anything that was happening in the background?
Oh gosh, it's so heartbreaking to think about. So I knew that something was off before we went to tribal because people started not looking me in the eye. And at that tribal council, no one looked at me. And I've never had that before. And I was like, no, what is this? Maybe this is just what they're like. But no, it was definitely off. Tez, Tez, no one really was connecting with Tez except for Mark, it seemed. Everyone would have their chats, and Tez would be told to sit and wait, and then Mark would be like, "All right, I'll look after Tez," and would take Tez off. And you could tell Tez really he loves the game. Like he's amazing. But he really wanted to make a move, but he couldn't articulate it well, and he couldn't decide and actually go for something. And I think he would doubt himself and backtrack. So I was really frustrated with him. And I even got frustrated with him in the tribal. He's like, I don't know who we're voting for, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, who do you want to vote for? Like make your own decisions and make your own moves. But um that tribal was tough. Like if I had voted for Caleb instead of Tez,
Yeah, I was gonna ask
it
because
might have
I
been a
know they had
different
said like, oh,
outcome.
we're gonna tell them to split between Tez and Caleb. So were you coming in intending to vote for Tez, or was this like an on the fly? You frustrated me too much. I'm voting for Tez.
I really wanted to, we can see what happens when you don't vote with your tribe, right? So Harry voted for Loz that night, and it really rubbed Jackson the wrong way because it was a move. And I was told by Keely, it's going to be Caleb. Can you vote for Tez? And I was like, yes, boss. And not the right move, but well, like fair play to her. Because yeah, that's what ultimately got me.
I mean, how do you look back on this experience? Because, like you've said, it's been a long time coming for you, and you came in with such, a unique set of skills. You find this, advantage, this idol clue at the very first thing. Like you played hard and you played fast. So, how do you look back upon getting the opportunity to finally live out this dream?
Oh my gosh. Like you go over everything so many times in your head afterwards. Was it me finding the clue on day one a hindrance because it made me withdraw a little bit from my tribe? Like, should I have just played the idol for Harry? Should I have made bigger moves? I'm really frustrated that I didn't get to bring out, my real skills in all the individual challenges because I'm so sporty. And
And you showed it in
yeah, we didn't
one,
get.
and then one, that one mattered a lot.
It did. It did. That was that was such a great moment. It was a great moment for me. Everyone else hated it. 'Cause I think I cried that day actually because it was my ride or die wasn't there when I'd won, and like a couple of people were happy for me, but they really weren't happy for me. And I was like, this is such a lonely joy. But yeah, like overall, I had the most incredible time, and I'm so grateful. I gone too soon, but honestly, I can't have, found the clue, found the idol, made amazing connection with Loz, especially. Did the idol swap, won individual immunity, did a blind side, although it was chaotic, but I'm really happy with how it all went. Yeah, just a shame that it ended so soon.
Well, regardless, I think getting to see you on the show was such a windle in a manner of speaking. So thank you so much for especially bringing everything to this conversation today. I think you open a lot of people's eyes as to, looking beyond the edit, perhaps, even just from an idol perspective, to some of the moves you were making, some of
Yeah,
the thoughts that were going through your head. Obviously it seemed like a time for you out there, but I'm glad you look back on it with a lot of fondness, albeit some frustration, but I could really sense,
yeah.
the amount of joy you have in speaking about this, and I think that really means a lot. So thank you so much for reflecting on all that to me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I really hope that you have a little bit more understanding of what was
Yeah.
going on up here.
Well, thank you so
It's
much, Lindle.
organized delusion, okay?
I love it. I love the delusion so much. Well, thank you, Lindle, so much for the conversation. All the best to you and yours, and cannot wait to see what happens with you in the future. Thanks so much again.
Thanks, Mike. All the best.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye bye. I am so excited to talk with you, Tez, because given what we saw, or I guess more appropriately, what we didn't see, I've got questions. I know you've got answers. Let's break some plates. Opa, let's get into this thing, shall we?
Let's break them. Let's break them, Mike.
Well, I want to start with, I guess, where things broke, which was at the end there. So, obviously, your doom was pretty much spelled as soon as the other tribe leaves and the necklace gets given over. I'm curious though, from your perspective, did you get the sense that had Simon not given Richard the necklace, that he would have gone, or did you feel like no matter what, if your tribe was going, you would have been the one out?
Look, before that little scramble, Mark was telling me Rich and telling Rich me, and me and Rich were just looking at each other because we're like, he's trying to play us both. I had a little feeling that it could be him just based on the fact of his relationships with the other tribe. And I was going to try to bring that up during that tribal. And you see them, they were actually batting for him. They were batting for him. And I was going to bring that up and be like, guys, look, the other tribe, he's going to go straight back to them. But when Simon gave Rich the necklace, you could see it on my face. I'm like, oh God, like the wheel set in and you see me get up, Mark and Keely, and kind of just beg for my life. But yeah, I knew you could tell. I was on the bottom of that whole tribe the whole time. My hope was you see in that challenge where I'm holding up my hand, and I'm placed next to Lottie and Asha. Yeah, a little behind the scenes. I was very close with Blanche on the island. Very close. We had an alliance called a RHAP pack from day one. She cried on my shoulder every day. So when she went to that tribe swap, she was like saying, Tez is going to work with us. Tez is going to work with us. Tez is going to work with us. So you see me holding that pole and clocking that alliance. I'm saying Mark, Keely, Faith to Lottie and Asha. I'm like, who's running it? Faith. And they're like, Tez, tonight, if it's joint, if we have to vote together, vote with us. And I was like, 100%. So I was banking, like as a super fan deep down, I kind of knew that it would be fire, but I was banking on the fact that hopefully we get to vote all together. And I was literally going to go up to them and be like, let's vote one of them. Let's vote one of them out. But unfortunately, that's not what happened.
I'm intrigued by the Blanche aspect of things. Obviously, we'll talk about it at the beginning of the game, but we didn't see the spots getting drawn. Was it a random draw to get you in those pairs, or did you pick your opponent?
No, it was our random draw, and it was so
you just happened to get the person that you were closest with.
I was closest to, yes. It never shown, but we had, again, an alliance every day. We'll get into it because there's so much to say, but I tell her, I go, Blanche, if we don't win this, I'm going home. And she's like, Tez, we got to win this. Tez, we got to win this. And so you see her conversing with Caleb and Loz next to us, and I have Lottie and Asha who are like begging me to win. They're like, we want you with us. Come merge. We want you with us. And Blanche had passed on great information about me. So,
well, let's get into Baron 1.0 because there's a lot of labels that are being thrown your way: floater, coaster, weasel, perhaps by a couple select individuals. So what was your position in that tribe? You mentioned Blanche. Who were some of the people you were closest with in that first phase of the game?
Yep. So that first phase of the game, you can actually see I was very under the radar. My name wasn't spread out until Keely and Faith in the Johnson vote. But my game I was in the middle. So I had on one side, I had Blanche, who was my one of my number ones. I had Johnson. You never saw that. The reason I don't vote Johnson in the Don and Johnson vote is because I was actually with Johnson. So when I hold up the parchment and say, I'm not a sheep, won't do as I'm told, it was directed towards Mark. Because you see me being a Mark minion. I was the half-baked information. That's why I was giving half-baked information, because I didn't want to work with him. I could tell he was using me as a number. And so that's why I actually never worked with him. But my in with that was I had Brooke. Me and Brooke had a final two called the Jasmine Aladdin Alliance. And she was kind of like my plus. She was my into that core group that we like, me, Johnson, Blanche, even Kat at the start. Me and Kat were clocking it from the start. And that Brooke was my answer. I was protected, but like Faith and Keely from day one with Faith, I just never got along with her. I must have rubbed her the wrong way. I remember stepping on her toe once and like she just carped at me. So that was like it was building. But the plan was to play low key. I went in there. I lie about my occupation to them. I say I'm an events coordinator. I don't say anything. I have a master's in law. I was playing very low key. In hindsight, maybe I should have said, like, I should have just been authentic and real and be like, no, I did this. I'm not making quiet, because it would have probably given people to be like, okay, no, he's clocked on, he's valuable. But me and Caleb had a very similar game. You saw him, he was playing double agent. I said to Caleb, I'm like, we're playing a very similar game, Caleb. We're very in the middle.
Well, talk to me about your relationship with Caleb a little bit, because as we start segueing into this very eventful bounty tribe, you throw a vote towards him, he throws a vote towards you. And so you would imagine on paper it's a little combative, but he's one of the people we see to like come to you and be like, hey, this is what you need to do to save yourself in the game. So talk about that dynamic.
Me and Caleb from OG Baron, we were close. Like, it was like a brother relationship. The only thing is, like, I was telling Blanche, because Blanche and Caleb were close. I was telling Blanche, I was like, you need to be careful of Caleb because he's running information back to Mark. And she never told him that, because they were close, but she never told him that. But me and Caleb were like brothers. The only reason I start going against him really is because when Sally comes up to me and is like, we might be voting Caleb out, the girls, I also heard that I was a name for Faith and Keely. Like, I was, like, you could tell by the way, like, they were trying to, like, kind of ice me out from pre-Baron. So I was like, I kind of was just jumping on the Caleb train to kind of save myself, because it was a kind of Sandra strategy, anybody but me. Yeah. But no, me and Caleb were great. Like, but what you don't see is me and Caleb were actually really great.
Interesting. Well, let's get into this swap, because you get involved, or perhaps not involved, in a major way. I mean, we see it specifically on New Bounty a lot of times where, like, you will ask someone to have a conversation and it seems like you will be rebuffed. Is that a representation of the way you felt you were treated on that tribe?
Yes. Yeah. So when I got tribe swapped, like, I knew I was on the bottom because, again, my allies and Brooke and Blanche got to the other tribe. I just voted Don the night prior. And then Mark, you could tell he was a little sus on me, and I wasn't valuable to him. But that's what you saw is what it was. I tried. I genuinely did try. Like, I was still trying to be social, build these relationships. But the Faith and Keely duo, they just didn't want anything to do with me. Like, it's funny because me and Keely were like good at the start, but I think you saw Faith. She says, I don't vibe with Tez. That was a really like a flaw in my game, not just trying harder. Because what you see is what you get. I wasn't getting iced out by Caleb, Sally, Rich. Like, they did want to talk to me, but like that trio alliance, yeah, I was. It was.
The points you make about Mark are so interesting because, yeah, you mentioned this sort of Mark's minion thing. One of the first things we see from you, it's all the way in episode 6, but this idea of like, I'm fanboying out that I get to play with an Australian Survivor legend. But from what it sounds like, it seems like you kept him at arm's length and vice versa.
I never voted with him. like, again, back to the Don. I say I'm not going to follow the leader. I'm not a sheep. That was directed towards Mark. I didn't vote with him again when Keely whispers me at tribal to vote Don. So I get it because he was using me just as much as I was using him. And maybe it was a bit of a true good illusion because at Keely and Faith, they really thought I was working for Mark. It's because we never really conversed because if I had known that they were also targeting Mark, I would have been like, guys, I would join.
Yeah.
But it was just, I was just so, I didn't want to show my cards a lot. I kept my cards too close because on the tribe swap, it was just like these people, I didn't have any of my people. I had Sally, but yeah, my mistake. I kept my cards too close to my chest and I gave them the impression that I really was like Mark Sheep.
Well, let's talk about a number of times when people came to the card table, if you were. Let's talk about this Lindle vote. There's so many things to get into here. We got to start with the fact that Rich sits you down and says, "All right, listen, let's make a big move. Let's make this happen. Just give me a name." And it seems from our perspective, you struggle and you finally get Faith out, and then you seemingly immediately go to Faith and say, like, "Hey, you're gonna hear a lot of things. By the way, I said your name, but I didn't say your name at the same time." Just walk me through this series of events from your perspective.
Yeah, so you can tell when I go to Rich and Lindle, we're all on the bottom. Mark scooped up Rich and Lindle straight away.
Yeah.
Like straight away, you could tell in the water. He took Lindle straight away in the water. And I'm like, oh, he's doing it with everybody. But so I go to them and I'm like, oh, I need to do something. So I'm like, guys, we need 4 votes. So me, Rich, Lindle, we need 4 votes. I'm willing to go to Rocks. So Rich is like, name a name, name a name. And I felt in that moment that they were trying to get me a name to name a name because they were on the bottom to kind of run it back.
Yeah.
And so I say Faith, which was a genuine name, which kind of goes back to when Kat was trying to target her, because Kat was clocking Mark and Faith from day one. And another little tidbit, an alliance with Kat called the Traders were very, very close. In that tribal...
So were you someone who also clocked her background, not just Mark?
Oh yeah, no. Well, Kat on the mat. I was the first person to give her a hug. If you rewatch it, I was the first person, and I was like, "Do I keep this information to myself?" But even in the bush, I told her, "I'm like, I watched your season, like, loved you, and we just got along like house on fire." But back to the little circle, I named Faith, which was true, but it was like a standoff, and then I see Lindle a little bit after go talk to Faith, like. Near the shelter in the bushes. And in my head, she's told me after that, no, she didn't say anything. But I saw them and I'm like, they're close. Was this just used as like an opportunity to kind of like say Tez said this? So I went into damage control, not my best move. And I should have just gone up to Faith and been like, look, I said your name. It wasn't a name, but I stumbled quite badly. But that was why I went into damage control, because I had assumed that Lindle told her straight away because they talked very quickly after that little circle with them.
So then what was your reaction when Rich comes to you later in the day and says, okay, yeah, we're going to do the Faith plan? I mean, even seems in the moment, you're like, oh, that's a thing?
I was trying to gaslight him to be like, oh no, it's your move. Like because I was like, in my head, I'm like, yes, 100%. Like you could tell she was running it. That's why I said Faith. You could tell she was in the middle of Keely and Mark. And we just didn't have this. I knew we didn't have the social agency to pull it off, because me and Rich started to get close. I was close with Sally, but I could tell that Sally was close with the girls and Caleb was very close with Mark, and I was still getting iced out. So I wanted to do it, and that's a mistake I made in the game. I should have just gone full throttle and started being like, no, let's us get together. But I just felt I had no social agency.
All right, we need to get into this tribal council because there's this double bluff going on seemingly as you sort of espouse a confessional, right? Where in the moment, Mark is mouthing vote Rich to you. You seem to be feigning confusion to the point where you're basically like talking to David about like, I don't know what's going on. But it seems like in confessional you did to vote out of defiance. You know, you make another statement about how you're not going to follow the leader. So talk me through what was going on through your head throughout that evening.
Yes. So Mark had came up to me and he's like, you know, we might vote Lindle. And so I'm like, okay. And then Keely comes up to me 5 minutes before tribal and she's like, I'm going to tell you the vote 5 minutes before tribal. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, well, I'm on the bottom of you. Like, I'm on the bottom of you guys. If I don't go now, like, I'm probably going to go soon. But like, I didn't want to think like that. But so me and Rich, we got quite close and we're like, okay, we'll vote Caleb. And I was on the assumption that Lindle would vote Caleb with us just because of her and Rich, like, closeness. So at Tribal, when Mark mouths me, vote Rich, I see it directly. And I'm just pretending to like be like, I use the fact that he was, because the Tribal seating, it's like kind of like a half circle.
Okay.
I just was like, I don't know who you're saying. I don't know who you're saying. Like, I'm David, I'm confused. I wasn't confused. And so I'm like, okay, in my head, a split can go free on, because they wanted to split it free. So a split can go on Caleb and the possibility of a revote, like we could do something, but Lindle ended up voting me because, yeah, Mark told her to vote me, which on the way out, I'm like, babe, I didn't vote you. So I go back to camp and I'm just trying to play it off. I'm trying to play dumb, trying to do like a little Natalie Anderson thing. Cause I already shot myself in the foot. But yeah, no, that was definitely intentional.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so what was your reaction now being perceived as such a wild card, right? I mean, clearly Marcus is peeved with you in that moment. Faith is certainly peeved with you afterwards. What was it like to try to handle damage control once again as a result of trying to like almost dig that hole deeper of like, no, I really didn't know what was going on. You can trust me.
Yeah, no, I mean, they weren't talking to me anyway. Like, so they weren't including me in conversations anyway. So it was already bad. But I was like, I'm going to work with Rich. Like, hopefully if I say something in the circle, it'll make like Caleb realize that we're on the bottom. Like, that we're in the same position. But yeah, I was just trying to play it off and play really, really stupid. Again, maybe a big mistake, but I don't want to fault, like, I didn't want to do what they want to do.
I'm curious because at one point in a confessional in last episode, you're like, I could vote for Richard, but that's a boring move. Was there another thing you wanted to do? And what ultimately had you coming back to like, no, listen, it's survival instinct. I have to try to vote for Rich at the end of the day if he's vulnerable.
Yeah, no, see, I went into survival mode. Like, I was like, the super fan in me, like, admittedly was like, last another day, last another day, last another day. Which really out there, you should just go like throw anything that sticks, But even that little tribe, the scramble, I go up to Faith and I'm like, last minute, I'm like, can we have a conversation? What's the go tonight? She pretty much just like instantly, she's like, no, I'm gonna go find an idol. So like just shuts me down straight away. And I'm like, okay. And then me and Rich are like, what are we gonna do? Like, do we try to talk to Caleb? What? It was very obvious. So I was banking on the fact that Lottie and Asha, during that 30 minutes that we were holding it down, they were like, vote with us, Tez. Like, you are in with us. Like, they gave me my flowers. They were like, I felt so included with them. And Blanche had like said so many good things. So I was like really banking on the fact that I'd get up, go and be like, okay, let's vote Keely, Mark, Faith out, because that's what they wanted to do. But yeah, you see me like sitting, like I start sitting there because like I'm just getting debuffed from all these conversations. And Caleb, bless his heart, such a great guy. He's like, you need to do this. You need to do this. And like, I know what I needed to do. Like, again, I was trying to play into the narrative of, oh no, it's just Tez. He's just dumb. Like, but like, again, you never say never until, or like, you never, don't fail until you've given up.
Yeah.
But yeah, what you saw, like what it was.
Well, last thing I want to ask is you've mentioned it a number of times, both here and on the show, about your super fandom. And listen, it was far from, the platonic ideal experience. And I know certainly online, there's been a lot of talks about how, people have felt that you have felt isolated by numerous people throughout the game. So how do you look back on this experience? It was a dream come true, but I also imagine at the same time, there were a couple of nightmare scenarios you faced during that dream.
Honestly, like pre-tribe swap, you don't see a pre-tribe swap, but I had the best time. Like, again, me and Blanche, house on fire. We had the RHAP pack. Me and Kat, I'm not sure if I talked about that tribal where like I sit back down. I whispered to her, Kat, because we're close. You don't see it. We had an alliance called the Traders.
Yeah.
I whispered to her, I'm like, they want me to vote you out. And she goes, kiddo, if it puts you in their majority, vote me out. And so I wrote out a little love heart. I know, shocker. And then So I had the best time. Me and Brooke, we had a Jasmine and Aladdin alliance. Like
Yeah.
she was my in with them. So I had a great time pre-tribe swap. It was just post-tribe swap. I got swapped with that power trio. It felt like the Soviet. It literally felt like the Soviet Union. They were just like icing me out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was an amazing experience, and I have lifelong friends with this. Like, I speak to Kat every day, I speak to Blanche every day. Johnson's another one you never saw. I started speaking Greek to him regarding numbers of who would vote with us. So I'm like, Ena, Vio, Tria. So me, Blanche, and him to vote with him, which we did in the Don vote. So I had, real friendships and real connections. But just it was post-tribe swap that it kind of like derailed my game.
No, that really heartens me to hear. I mean, look, it's sometimes the good is going to come with the bad, but it does, I think, bring a lot to your experience that there was a lot of great relationships you made and a lot of good times you had, because this was, again, a long-held dream. And so thank you for everything you brought to the screen, for making this dream come true. Again, you are only within a handful of people, let alone super fans of Australian Survivor, to get to play Australian Survivor. So I really commend you for everything that your tenacity, as you said in your famous credo about how you fail and fail and fail until you succeed. And I think you did leave the game with successes in certain regards.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Like, you could possibly say I'm one of the worst players in Survivor history, but there's still Simon. No, but there's only 250 people that get to do this, and I'm one of that. So I'm part of the family. And I had a great time. I had an amazing time. I'm so grateful.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that. Well, I'm happy to have talked with one of the 250 right here, and I hope it won't be the last time. So thank you, Tez, so much. This was great getting to chat. Thank you for opening up about everything we saw, and especially we didn't see. I think you bring a lot of clarity to, your very tumultuous time in the game. So I will let you go. All the best to you and your family, but thank you so much again, Tez. This was a delight.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Of course, all the best. Have a good. Bye.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.